in the mystery of creation, in following in the way of Jesus. And deep within each of us is the Spirit of God. And so we light this candle, its flame, a reminder of God's warmth and love for all God's people.
Our church family is constantly changing. People come and go. Babies are born. Children grow up. People commit themselves to one another. Loved ones and friends among us come to the end of their lives. Individuals move into our community and church life. Others leave us, moving away to new places, new experiences, and new opportunities. It is important and right that we recognize these times of passage, of endings, and beginnings. Today we gather online to say farewell to our long-serving minister. We give thanks for his ministry, and we give thanks for this day to be online in community. Peace be with you.
And also with you.
Let's offer each other a sign of peace.
Peace.
Peace, Rev.
Peace, 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 and peace. Oh, I don't know how that keeps getting in there, but so far, so good. We made it to the finals. The first time a Canadian team has made it to the finals since, what, 2011, I think, maybe? Something like that. And if it had to be a Canadian team to make it to the finals, this is the best. This is our best chance, Toronto, of winning the Stanley Cup. So there we have it. So good morning, good day, and welcome to Fort Massey Church on this, the fifth Sunday after Pentecost, June the 27th, 2021, yours truly's last service here at Fort Massey Church. But we'll say more about that later on. And with me today, serving in the capacity of leadership, are Jenny Treitz on the piano and organ, our music director, Jade Fraser, our songster, Varane Tavuma, our liturgist, and Ian McDonald, as always, faithfully on our camera. And we have a few other special guests who are with us today representing the congregation, and Allison McDonald, our clerk of session, and Ruth McKenzie, our chief steward, and Alan Heyman, our chief trustee. So, but you'll see a little bit more of them later on in the service. We do want to offer our wedding congratulations to Matthew Day and Victoria, who were married here on Saturday, June the 26th, and we want to wish them all the happiness that married life can bring. And then coming up on June the 30th, Craig McDonald and Colleen Eisner will be wedded here at Fort Massey Church. So on June the 30th. So we want to wish them as well all the happiness in the world. A reminder to our elders that we will be gathering on Tuesday evening. We'll actually meet in the lower hall on Tuesday evening in person with face masks and social distancing in place still. and for our monthly meeting at 7:30 Tuesday night. Reminder too, our summer gatherings, again, are at St. Matthew's Church in July. So all of the month of July and the first Sunday of August. And the Reverend Betsy Hogan, she's going to be on call as your emergency minister. If you have an emergency, you can reach her through either Ruth McKenzie or Allison McDonald. Both their numbers are in the bulletin, which you can find online. And anyway, so, and also in August, the first 2 Sundays after August the 1st, those, I guess, the second and third Sundays of August, Allison McDonald will be our worship leader here at Fort Massey, and Vereen Tuvuma will pick up those latter 2 Sunday services in August. And so we'll be back to church here 10:30 Sunday mornings, probably in person, unless things go absolutely off the rails for COVID. You should be back here in person. And a reminder to you, I should tell you as well that when you go down to St. Matthew's Church, you won't find the Reverend Betsy Hogan there. she's off for the summer. She'll be doing emergency pastoral care, but she's off preaching for the summer. But they have a wonderful lay worship leader whom I do not know. I didn't catch the name, but I'm told she's very good. So it would be nice for the Fort Massey and St. Matthew's folks to be together for a month Sundays. We want to say thank you to all the folk who just made some Hope Cottage casseroles, and how much that ministry means to so many people. And thanks to your cooperation and your ministry of making those casseroles. And I see the next casseroles are due on August the 19th, so it gives you a little bit of a break. And also coming up, this is just off the press, as they say, there will be a congregational meeting on July the 5th. I believe that's a Monday night at 8 o'clock via Zoom, and or I guess you can call in as well, and all that information will be sent out to you before the meeting. So this is your first time we're announcing it on a Sunday service. It'll be announced next Sunday at St. Matthew's. Oh, and by the way, if you can't make it to St. Matthew's in person, they also have someone who records the services, so you can catch it online as well, either their Facebook page or their website. And the business is just to announce, I guess it's going to make a decision regarding hiring a minister for the fall. Is that correct? Thank you. And yeah, so that's it for notices. Did I forget anything, Vereen? Did you watch Montreal?
I did. I thought it creeped into my head just now. I was thinking, since you're claiming success for Montreal's performance.
What's that?
Since you've been claiming, since you're responsible for Montreal.
I am responsible for all of that, yes.
So I was thinking maybe you should hang on a few more weeks until the end of the standard.
Yeah, do you think? Yes,
I think so.
Yeah,
I think the country needs it. I think we need it. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, folks, we want to thank you for your support to Fort Massey Church, and a reminder to you that summer is upon us now, and we thank you for remembering your church throughout the summer months as well, whether it's through PAR or e-transfers or dropping them off at the door at Ruth's or here at the church, what have you. We appreciate all your contributions to the ministry here at Fort Massey Church, and also the ministry of the United Church of Canada through the Mission and Service Fund and all the great work it does on your behalf.
Through our gifts, we offer thanks for all we have, for all we are, especially for our lives. Our offerings for the celebration of life in this place and beyond are gratefully received. Let us pray. O God, as we gather to end a 28-year ministry, we give thanks for remembered time when we, together, have shared the life of faith. We thank you for the moments we have shared with Reverend Trent in worship, in learning, in service. God, whose everlasting love for all is trustworthy, help each of us to trust the future which rests in your care. The time we were together in your name saw our laughter and tears, our hopes and disappointments. Guide us as we hold these cherished memories, but move in new directions. Until that time to come, when we are completely one with you and with each other. In the name of Jesus Christ, praying together, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
For the Lord is in the sky.
Today's message is entitled Down Memory Lane. How appropriate for today. And it's based on two readings. The first are some excerpts from a poem by Natasha Kurian. Buried beneath the vicissitudes of life, over myths and reality, far behind everything today represents, is a life long gone, slightly forgotten, as the yesterdays piled up, diminishing it in ways that kept today far ahead, marred by the happenings of everyday life, but never fully forgotten. Walking ahead, leaving behind footprints on the sands of time, hoping to make it big in the world. Innocent feet that hardly knew what life was capable of unleashing stepped out of the cocoon, spun around the adolescence of adulthood. A single trip down memory lane can flip the switch that controls where you want to be. Such is the way of the mind, always looking forward to the future, in grave need of reliving the past, and stuck in between, deciding which at present. Here ends the first reading.
Our second reading comes from Psalms chapter 143, verses 5 to 10. I call to mind times long past. I think over all you have done. The wonders of your creation fill my mind, a thirst for you like thirsty land. I lift my outspread hands to you. Lord, answer me soon, my spirit faints. Do not hide your face from me, or I shall be like those who go down to the abyss. In the morning, let me know of your love, for I put my trust in you. Show me the way that I must take, for my heart is set on you. Deliver me, Lord, from my enemies. With you I seek refuge. Teach me to do your will, for you are my God. By your gracious Spirit, guide me on level ground. Offer it as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its light. Today is a day for memories, looking back rather than looking forward. When a ministry ends, when a chapter ends, we think about all that has come before in this place for the past 28 years and the past 150 years as well. Or as the poet says, a single trip down memory lane can flip the switch that controls where you want to be. Such is the way of the mind, always looking forward to the future, in grave need of reliving the past, and stuck in between. So today, we travel back, stuck in today, and looking forward to what will become. Someone wrote, "Memories are special moments that tell our story." And so we have written our own stories with our memories, which we all bring today. Some of us have been part of this place for years and years, and others of us have arrived much more recently. Well, as you can imagine, I have been spending much of June keeping busy, performing weddings, one for someone with deep roots which go way back in the history of this church. Another for a part of a clan that has been part of my time here at the fort. And another who arrived during the final years of my ministry, Vervain and Clarissa, who've become part of our community so quickly as he has led us in worship and will continue to do so after I leave. The psalmist penned the words, "I remember the days of long ago. I meditate on all of your works and consider what your hands have done." All that we have done from this corner of Queen and Tobin. So today we remember, and I'll begin by sharing with you two memories from my very first Sunday, which you will not remember. For there were two phone calls that day. The first was from a woman, and I didn't catch her name, but I think she said something like Mrs. Smith. And she said, "You won't remember me, but I was in church this morning, and I just wanted to call and point out a few things. First, you need to yell louder. Most of us are old, and most of us cannot hear well. But I think," I spluttered, "there are microphones." I know, but you will need to yell. It's a big place, and you're used to preaching in a much smaller space. Look around you and think, yell loudly." And next she said, "Let me tell you about the music. Now, we at Fort Massey only know about 30 hymns out of that new hymn book, and we expect them to be recycled all year. Oh, we do know a few of the old carols and a few Easter hymns. Those are okay as long as you pick the right ones, but don't you be trying any new ones. We don't want to learn a new hymn." But I protested, there's a choir, and a great organist, and they can teach a new one occasionally. The pulpit committee was keen on learning new music. The pulpit committee, that bunch, she protested, they probably told you they were okay with new ideas. You are young, and some of them are youngsters as well, but they do not run the church, and we don't want new ideas in our beautiful old building. Now, most of you are probably thinking, as I was, frantically trying to figure out who this woman was. Well, if you recall, way back 28 years ago in September, it had been Labor Day weekend, and like a typical church on a typical Labor Day weekend, there wasn't a huge crowd out that day, that first week, and I could not picture her at all. When suddenly she started to laugh, and I realized it was one of my sisters. She had not been in church that morning, but she thought it would be pretty easy to guess what a parishioner might call to complain about, and that I would have no idea who was calling. But, my friends, that was not the only call of that first Sunday. The second was from a colleague, someone I had known before I moved to Halifax, and he called sounding very official. I hope that the pulpit committee, or the Reverend Mr. Norton, the last minister, dared to tell you why no one wants that pulpit, he began. You see, there's a long history at Fort Massey of holding services for the Russian Orthodox. Only a couple of times a year, I think, he went on, but most of us would not want to apply for a church where you have to learn Russian. Russian, I said. Really, no one mentioned that. Oh, well, he said, I guess you don't have to go to take Russian lessons, although I expect it would help. Dancing lessons would likely be more useful, he went on. Let me explain what little I know about it. You are expected to wear Russian vestments and walk up that long aisle swinging incense and chanting in Russian, but likely you can memorize that with good phonetics. But there is quite a ceremony, he said, and you'll have to dance around the sanctuary and remember to circle the altar, the communion table there, 3 times. And he went on and on and on. Well, I wasn't sure if this was just simply another prank, of course, or serious, because he sounded, quite truthfully, very, very serious and very detailed. And I knew the man, but I didn't really know him all that well. And well, you know, it might be possible. Who knows? And so I hung up the phone after, and I looked at Linda, my wife, and exploded. Surely someone would have told me, you know, Linda, if there was some Russian service, even once a year, wouldn't they? Well, we both sat there wondering where we had arrived when he called back in gales of laughter. But the joke backfired. A few years later, when we did actually hold a funeral right here at Fort Massey for a Greek Orthodox father of one of our members, and he was asked to take part. And it wasn't quite what he described, but I can remember as it went on for at least a couple of hours anyway, and included moments like circling and chanting around the communion table, and we didn't dare catch each other's eye. That was my beginning. That was the beginning. And if I go back a bit further, we came to see the church that summer before we arrived, the whole family. And we came in while it was still being renovated. They had just finished up doing all the replastering and painting and what have you inside the sanctuary here. And everything was covered in scaffolding, and there was plastic over everything to keep the pews from getting dirty and what have you. And you really couldn't tell whether the place was lovely or not at that stage. And so my 2 boys took one look around, you know, and they said, "No, Dad, we think you should stay in St. Andrews. This is not a church. We like it where we are." And Jason, I remember Jason, the oldest, promptly went out the front steps there onto Queen Street, and seeing a taxi go by with movie and television images in his head, held out his hand and yelled, "Taxi!" He was ready to go. But we stayed. We stayed much longer than we ever thought we would. I can remember Tristan, our middle boy, when he was younger, would spend time doing the math in the lower Tobin Street lobby there, trying to figure out how long each minister had stayed, looking at the rogues gallery of all the ministers' pictures. And of course, lots of them stayed a while. In some churches, they would not fit in such a small space after 150 years. So many ministers came and went, staying just maybe 2 or 5 years. But there were plenty of long-term ministries here at Fort Massey Church, with the winner being the Reverend Dr. D.M. Sinclair. And Tristan would say, "I bet we can stay longer than he did." And I'd laugh and say, "Not going to happen, Tristan, not going to happen. We'll never be here that long." "But you arrived when you were young," he'd protest. "It can be done, Dad." Well, of course, the plan, most ministers have plans, you know, when they're young especially. The plan was to stay, you know, maybe 10 years at the most. My wife would then have a career in law, and we'd move on. But as they say, life happened, and there was never quite the right moment. And so here we are, 28 years later. I started out in St. John, New Brunswick as the assistant minister in a city church. And I moved to a rural church with with three, a rural charge with 3 churches spanning 3 counties. There was one in Queens County, one in Annapolis County, and one just bordering Lunenburg County. And then off to St. Andrews in New Brunswick to serve a small town congregation and a country church outside the town. And now, coming full circle, we move back to St. Andrews, and I expect to work full-time or part-time, perhaps, likely in a place like St. John, although who knows at this stage. And a new chapter will begin here at the fort, another portrait for the lower hall, another minister in a long line of ministers. We don't have a portrait gallery for student ministers, and you know, that's probably a good thing because there wouldn't be room. I could not begin to name all of the student ministers that have come and gone just since I've been here, and there were so many before that. Sung Min from Korea, to the 2 Donnas from Newfoundland. Dave Wright, remember Dave Wright? And I remember when they called to tell me that he was coming, and they said he was an older man with a second career, and if you recall, there was Dave Wright on the CTV local news at 5 at CTV. And so I wondered if he was about to arrive, and I remember being somewhat intimidated by teaching an experienced older journalist how to become a member of the clergy. Fortunately, that wasn't the Dave Wright who arrived. Only a handful of organists, Barbara, Pierre, Simon, and Tristan, and then Demo and Jenny. And John, of course, who's been here from the beginning, always willing to fill in. And I look around, remembering the ladies in their pew. You'll remember Nance and Isabel and Heather and Jean, and now all passed away. But I won't begin to go down that road because, you know, that list is really too long. And there are so many faithful people, many of them, real characters like Aki and Dr. Rob and Rona and Bill Fong and Irene Parks, that it would take a book, not just a farewell sermon. Well, folks, things change, as you know, in any church, and they stay the same. We enjoyed Pizza Sunday back before the pandemic, one of the additions to our traditions, and we started a men's breakfast on Friday mornings, again, a victim of the pandemic. You know, ending one's ministry during a pandemic has made the past year a very difficult one. I remember the first week when Ian MacDonald called and offered to put us online during that first lockdown in March of 2020. And I thought, oh no, goodness gracious, I cannot imagine watching myself online. I am, as most people are, self-critical. You look at yourself and you think, I should have said that more clearly, or, you know, I should have stood up here or sat down there just then. And I commented recently that if I had wanted to be online weekly, I should have just stuck with my major in drama, where I started out. I knew that actors lived pretty precarious lives with very little income. Not sure that ministers make a whole lot more, but it seemed much more stable and less public. And so the past year and a bit has been difficult. We all know that. I am, as you all know or should know, a social person, and isolation does not work well for me. It especially does not work well this week, as I would much prefer to see you, to hug you and to shake your hands, to have a chat without these masks, and to say our farewells over a cup of tea. But pivoting and the new normal win out. And at least New Brunswick has opened their borders without quarantine hotels, because Linda and I have been imagining just how much Georgie, our little black cat with so much personality, would possibly cope in a quarantine hotel, or how other guests would cope with them. We thought you might even see us on the news with couple kicked out of hotel due to the loud yowling of a very angry cat and sent back to Nova Scotia. Well, chapters end and new ones begin. We will soon be sitting, looking out over Passamaquoddy Bay, or as the words of a St. Andrew song go, it is summertime in the Maritimes, and I think I'm going to stay and spend some time in this harbor town on the Passamaquoddy Bay. A close friend of ours, Linda and mine, recorded the song, and we usually play it every year as we drive into St. Andrews. But this time, we will actually be staying, not just for the summer, but for the years to come. Amen and amen.
Good day. My name is Alan Heyman. I am the senior trustee here at Fort Massey United Church. Last Sunday, Calvin Burke, a former student, expressed his appreciation to Trent on behalf of all of the students Trent had mentored from the Atlantic School of Theology over many years. Today, it is my honor to extend, on behalf of the congregation, best wishes to Trent and his family as he retires from his ministry at this church. In 1993, the congregation took a giant leap of faith by hiring a man we had never met and did not know. That gentleman was Trent Cleveland Thompson. Who would have known at that time that we had struck gold, that we had found a jewel that would be in our possession for 28 years? Although COVID-19 prevents us from gathering at the church hall to celebrate this occasion, it does seem fitting to me that this retirement event is being held here in our sanctuary. For here is where most of us met Trent for the first time, along with his wife Linda and their children. Our congregation has spent many hours of spiritual time together in this sanctuary under Trent's guidance and leadership. In fact, Trent has reminded us that he has delivered over 1,000 sermons from our pulpit. And I can honestly say that I have been here to listen to at least 750 of them. We have shared many moving moments in this sanctuary, one of the most significant of which is this day, as Trent exits our pulpit for the last time as our church minister. Bidding farewell to Trent is an emotional event, and I'm sure that as I speak, fond memories of your time with him will flash across your mind. It's hard not to shed a tear on this occasion. So I say to those of you who are joining us today, if you do shed a tear, you will not be alone. How can you not be moved by the departure of one who has inspired us and delivered a spiritual message to us on a weekly basis for nearly 3 decades? Some have described Trent as their spiritual connection to the Lord and their moral compass. His departure will leave a large void in our lives. Trent's name is synonymous with Fort Massey. He is the face of our church, and for many, he is the only minister they have known. Trent is the opposite to a politician. A politician usually leaves office far less popular when he or she was first elected. The opposite can be said of Trent, whose popularity amongst the congregation has grown every year since his arrival. So why is Trent so popular? What makes him such a remarkable minister? Here are a few reasons. Trent is a superb preacher. The sermons are brief and to the point, usually within an hour. To use his own words, a good sermon must, I quote, alarm you, arouse you, and challenge you. And that they have. His thought-provoking and timely messages are the key to his success. It is what initially attracts people to the church, and his weekly sermons are what keeps bringing people back. I know that his sermons are the subject of discussion of many long after they leave this church. Some will recall his series entitled The Comfortable Pew, which guided several members of our congregation on their spiritual journey. He has challenged the established theories and brought a 21st century perspective to our understanding of the Holy Scriptures. He emphasizes what unites us rather than what divides us. He treats us all with respect and dignity. He does not venture into the political arena in a way that will alienate the congregation, where he knows where to draw the line in discussions of politics and social justice. Many of us have lost a loved one over the last 28 years, and the memory of Trent's support for us during those sad and troubled times will last a lifetime. He is consoling, caring, and comforting, and he certainly shines in those events. Now, this sentiment is not only expressed by members of the congregation, but others who may come to our church for funerals. Many people have commented they'd like to have Trent officiate at their service. Matter of fact, one fellow suggested to me a few years ago, and I quote, "If Trent spoke at my funeral, he might even be able to convince people that I am not the villain I am reported to be." Trent, you clearly have a way of making people feel special, and you sure have opportunities in your post-retirement to officiate at end-of-life ceremonies. One of the most important bones in our body is our funny bone. If you lose it, you'll become dull and bored. Trent has not lost his. It keeps him energized and youthful, and it kept us inspired and entertained. And yes, he is a great singer. Although he is not in the church choir, is still our lead male vocalist on all hymns. Many churches today have a congregation that is in conflict. Some might say they are in a crisis. Thanks to Trent's leadership, our congregation is united. Here we are, celebrating our 150th anniversary, and there are no major disagreements and tensions that have blocked the effectiveness of our mission. For that, we are truly thankful. Several years ago, the family of John Irvine Young were members of Fort Massey. Mr. Young having immigrated to Canada from Scotland. He was a member of our Board of Management for a number of years. Their daughter, Elizabeth, later married Phil Pacey, and she became known to us as Elizabeth or Betty Pacey. Some will remember Betty's book entitled More Stately Mansions, Churches of Nova Scotia. She and Phil were members of Fort Massey and contributed greatly to the life of our congregation. Phil has since died. Both Betty and Phil saw the need to preserve heritage properties and were heavily involved in the Heritage Trust of Nova Scotia. Today, I am pleased to announce that I have signed a commitment letter with Betty, and she has made a donation to our building fund of $250,000. The fund is to be named after her. This donation of $250,000 is beyond our wildest dreams. It has been made by Betty while Trent is our minister, in recognition of the mutual respect they have for each other, as well as the need to preserve this historic Gothic structure. We thank Betty Pacey for her extreme generosity and are grateful to Trent for facilitating this most generous donation. Well, Trent, we certainly hope there will be occasions for you to visit with us, and we will always extend the welcome mat to you. In the meantime, we wish you and Linda many years of good health and happiness as you embark on a new journey in life. That first stop, as you mentioned, will be back to St. Andrews by the Sea in the province of New Brunswick, that place from which we lured you away some 28 years ago. May the Lord bless you, Trent, as you have blessed us.
Then for the last few Sundays, you've been coming to drop things off my house Sunday morning, what people bring to make donations. So when I get to talk to you, and I'm using some similar words for Alan made, slightly different. How about, I once had a pastor named Trent, who in writing, he sure had a bent. His sermons were timely, pointed, but timely. You were sure of the message you sent. And the other thing, partly based on what Alan was saying, do you remember that the God talked about Koreans? If it rains the day of a funeral, that's when there's a heaven to find with him. Well, it's hazy today, because our tears, our eyes are teary, because you know what? No, I may be the one who receives the funds in the church, puts them into the bank
Thank you, Alan, for those very generous and kind words. Oh, sorry. Heather. Sorry about that, Allison. You go ahead.
I find myself in a paradoxical situation where there's so much to say to acknowledge what Trent means to us, yet knowing that words can't adequately capture that. We're so thankful that we have for all that we have shared together here at Fort Massey with you, Trent, and with Linda. You have given us so much, and we appreciate Linda's support of you and your ministry here and the support she has given to the congregation and life of Fort Massey. Your leadership in the pulpit, at session and board of management has been enriching as you have worked with us to keep Fort Massey relevant and to explore different ways to help our church grow. We thank you for your words, words that tell stories, words that make us laugh, and words that comfort us when we cry, words that challenge us and make us think. Beyond words, you have built a rich community of faith and friends, from nurturing lay participation in worship, creating pumpkin carving contests, the vicar's ladle, gardens, tea parties, breakfast and coffee groups, trips out and about, and so much more. Your efforts and gestures have woven us closely together. You have been a rock for us, there with us, for us always, through hurricanes, at our moments of loss and our moments of joy. When the pandemic brought isolation and worry, you kept us connected with online worship, Zoom coffee groups, Zoom hymn sings, and Zoom trivia nights. For the path that we have traveled with you, we are so immensely glad and grateful. For everything that you have shared, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We will always keep you and Linda in our hearts and prayers. For you and Linda, we ask that God guide your feet, that you may travel safely. God continue to be with you both always, a constant companion, guardian, friend, and guide.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, and Ruth, and Alan for your, as I said before, your very generous, kind words. Yeah, a lot of memories there, and some of which I'd forgotten, but you brought them all back to me. And I suppose Elizabeth Pacey's generous gift to the church announced today is rather indicative of the generosity of the people of Fort Massey Church, past and present. So thank you, Betty. Your gift is very much appreciated by us all. Over the years, you, the people in the pews, and a lot of you away from the pews even, you know, and other cities and provinces have given of your time and your talents and your treasures willingly and lovingly, which is perhaps why you have only had 14 ministers in your esteemed 150-year history. The generosity of spirit is a great encourager for clergy. I am certain that future ministers will quickly discover this generosity is in fact part of the very DNA of Fort Massey Church. And so I want to take this opportunity to thank all those who have, over my 28 years, contributed to the church in numerous capacities. and particularly those who serve as members of the Kirk Session, including my 2 clerks of session, the members of the Board of Management, our secretaries and treasurers, the session and board committees, our trustees, our M&P members, our musicians and choristers and choirs, our children and youth workers and Sunday school superintendents, the UCW, student ministers and lay worship leaders, our tech support people, those who do our recordings and our web pages and our Facebook pages and our Twitter accounts, as well as the wonderful staff members that I've had the privilege of working with over the years, my organists and music directors, our sextons and office administrators. In conclusion, I'd like to offer these words, these very wise words from a very familiar writer. There is a time for everything and a reason for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, such as these days. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. And I would add one more, a time to arrive and a time to leave. Well, folks, everything has a beginning and an end. And so the timing to end this chapter seems about as right as it could be, COVID or no COVID. And may the Nova Scotia-New Brunswick border crossing be as smooth as the Israelites parting at the Red Sea. Amen. Let us affirm our faith.
We are not alone. We live in God's world. We believe in God, who has created and is creating, who has come in Jesus, the Word made flesh, to reconcile and make new, who works in us and others by the Spirit. We trust in God. We're called to be the church, to celebrate God's presence, to live respect in creation, to love and serve others, to seek justice and resist evil, to proclaim Jesus, crucified and risen, our judge and our hope, in life and death, in life beyond death. God is with us. We are not alone. Thanks be to God.
Filling all our hearts with love and joy and peace.
Go now, and know that you are surrounded by love and led by the promises of God, the presence of Jesus Christ, and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
May it be so.
May it be so.
Thank you.